Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, your home for fearless political commentary and stories the mainstream media often tries to bury. Today's topic is nothing short of explosive. We are diving into a legal drama that has set South Africa abuzz, the conviction of economic freedom fighters leader Julius Malema by East London Magistrate Twanet Olivier, a ruling that many believe reeks of political bias, judicial hypocrisy, and the ugly persistence of double standards in South Africa's justice system. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Credible information has surfaced suggesting that Magistrate Twanet Olivier, yes, the same magistrate presiding over Malema's firearm case, is allegedly a member of AfriForum, an organization that has repeatedly clashed with Malema and the EFF in both court and public opinion. If that claim turns out to be true, it raises a very serious question: why did she not recuse herself when Malema's legal team formally requested it? Why continue to preside over a case involving a man you've publicly opposed, or at least whose organization has accused AfriForum of advancing an anti-black agenda? According to reports, Malema's lawyers made a clear argument that Olivier's links to AfriForum created a conflict of interest. Yet, she refused to step aside. Instead, she pressed on, ultimately finding Malema guilty on charges many have described as flimsy, technical, and politically motivated. To some observers, this wasn't justice being done. It was a performance, a legal theater scripted long before the final act was even staged. Let's not forget who we're talking about here. This same Magistrate Olivier is the one who, not long ago, sentenced a young university student named Julius Malema to 5 years in prison for mistakenly spending part of an NSFAS overpayment. The Eastern Cape High Court later overturned that sentence, calling it excessively harsh and completely disproportionate to the offense. Malema, a struggling student, could have lost her freedom and her future because of Olivier's decision. And now, that same magistrate has once again been accused of wielding her gavel with bias, this time against one of South Africa's most polarizing political figures. So what does this all say about South Africa's justice system? Are we witnessing a judiciary that's impartial and fair, or are we looking at the hidden hand of political influence masquerading as rule of law? Julius Malema, of course, has called the case a political witch hunt, arguing that his conviction is not about gun laws, but about silencing dissent. And, let's be honest, the timing of this case feels almost too convenient. The EFF has been gaining influence, reshaping conversations about land, race, and power. And just as Malema ramps up his criticism of the government of national unity, suddenly a case from years ago springs back to life, dragging him through the courts yet again. Some might call it coincidence. Others might call it a strategy. Because let's face it, in South African politics, coincidence is often the polite name we give to political warfare. The alleged AfriForum connection only deepens the sense of injustice. AfriForum has long painted Malema as a dangerous figure, accusing him of promoting hate speech and incitement. Yet, here we have a magistrate allegedly tied to that same group, presiding over his case as if that connection meant nothing. In any functioning democracy, the principle of recusal exists precisely to prevent this kind of situation, to maintain not just fairness, but the appearance of fairness. When a judge or magistrate has even the faintest personal link to a party involved in a case, the ethical choice is to step aside. It's not about guilt or innocence, it's about credibility. But that didn't happen here. And that refusal to recuse has sparked outrage. EFF supporters see this as a textbook example of what they call lawfare, the strategic use of the legal system to weaken political opponents. It's not about justice, they argue. It's about control. About reminding the loudest voices in the opposition that no one is untouchable, and that power, real power, doesn't just sit in parliament, it sits quietly behind courtroom benches. Let's also remember that Magistrate Olivier's previous rulings haven't exactly inspired confidence. In the Julius Malema case, her sentence was so draconian that even legal scholars described it as a miscarriage of justice. When that judgment was overturned, it was a rare rebuke of judicial overreach. Yet, instead of reflection or reform, it seems the same heavy-handed approach continues. Some critics now describe Olivier as a symbol of a deeper problem, a judiciary that sometimes punishes poverty and protest harder than corruption and privilege. Meanwhile, Malema's conviction plays perfectly into the hands of his opponents. It tarnishes his image ahead of local government elections, fuels anti-EFF propaganda, and distracts from the very issues he's been raising: land redistribution, state capture, and inequality. You have to wonder, is this all just legal coincidence, or is there a script being written somewhere behind closed doors? Humor aside, there's a dark irony here. South Africa, the country that prides itself on having one of the most progressive constitutions in the world, still finds itself wrestling with questions of bias, race, and judicial accountability. When a student like Sibunjaya Moni faces 5 years for a financial mistake while politically connected figures walk free from corruption scandals worth millions, it's hard not to ask, whose justice are we really serving? Even among those who don't support the EFF, there's a growing unease. Because today it's Julius Malema, but tomorrow it could be anyone who challenges the system. When the law becomes a weapon of politics rather than a shield of fairness, democracy begins to crack, quietly, then loudly, until the trust between people and institutions collapses completely. Now, if the rumors about AfriForum membership are confirmed, the implications will be massive. It could trigger calls for a judicial review, spark parliamentary debate, and force the magistrate's office to re-examine standards of transparency. And perhaps, finally, it will raise a conversation South Africa desperately needs about who gets to sit in judgment, and what hidden loyalties shape those decisions. For Julius Malema, this may well become another chapter in his long political war against the establishment, a battle fought not just in rallies and parliaments, but in courtrooms where justice too often bends toward the powerful. And as this story unfolds, it's not just about Malema's guilt or innocence anymore. It's about the soul of South Africa's judiciary, the future of public trust, and whether the courts are still the guardians of democracy, or just another stage for political theater. So, what do you think? Was this a fair trial or a witch hunt in legal disguise? Do you believe that a magistrate with alleged ties to AfriForum could ever deliver an unbiased ruling on Julius Malema? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is one South Africa cannot afford to ignore. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more fearless breakdowns of the stories shaking South Africa, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our updates. Thank you for watching, stay curious, stay bold, and as always, see you next time.